The wind howled through the narrow streets of Wintermoor, a sleepy village nestled in the hills of northern England. Snowflakes danced in the air, settling softly on rooftops and cobblestone lanes. It was late December, and the village square glowed with the soft amber light of gas lamps and festive decorations. Yet, beneath the charm, there was an uneasy stillness. Eleanor Whitmore stood at the window of her family's antique bookshop, the Timeless Page, watching the snow drift past. The shop had been in her family for 3 generations, filled with forgotten tales and rare volumes. Her father, Arthur, had always said that books could sense when something was about to happen. Lately, Eleanor had caught the shelves creaking at odd hours and felt pages flutter when there was no breeze. As the church bell struck 7, the door chimed. A man stepped in, tall and wrapped in a long black coat. His boots were soaked, and his gloved hands clutched a leather satchel. He had a sharp jawline, a dusting of snow on his shoulders, and eyes that flickered like candle flames. There was something about him that tugged at Eleanor's instincts, curiosity mixed with a twinge of caution. "Good evening," he said in a voice that hinted at distant places. "I'm looking for something very specific." Eleanor nodded slowly. "You've come to the right place. What is it you're after?" He looked around the shop, as if the answer might be hiding in plain sight. "A book. Bound in green leather. With no title. You'll know it when you see it." She raised an eyebrow. "We've thousands of old books. It might take some time." "I can wait," he replied, taking off his gloves and warming his hands near the small fireplace. "Time is something I have plenty of." As the evening wore on, the stranger browsed the shelves with unusual precision. Eleanor watched him from behind the counter. He never looked twice at any book, never hesitated, but moved through the aisles as though he had memorized the layout. At one point, he paused in front of a locked cabinet. Eleanor noticed his eyes narrowing. "That one," he said softly. "In there." The cabinet held the rarest volumes, some of which had belonged to her grandfather. She hesitated. "That case is locked for a reason," she said. "Some books aren't meant for just anyone." The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "And some secrets weren't meant to stay hidden forever." A sudden gust of wind slammed the shop door shut, startling them both. Eleanor's heart pounded. Something was shifting in the air. Outside, the snow had begun to fall harder, thick and fast. The man placed a single silver coin on the counter, ancient, foreign, unlike any currency she had ever seen. "I'll return tomorrow," he said. "Don't move the book." He disappeared into the storm, leaving behind the scent of pine and parchment, and a silence that hummed with anticipation. Eleanor stood frozen, staring at the coin. Deep down, she knew this was the beginning of something far bigger than a rare book search. Something was waking in Wintermoor. The following morning, Wintermoor lay beneath a thick blanket of snow. The village looked like something from an old postcard, still, white, and eerily quiet. Eleanor arrived at the shop early. She hadn't slept. The stranger's visit had left her restless, her mind spinning with questions. Inside the Timeless Page, the air was cold, touched by the night's chill. She unlocked the front door, lit the fireplace, and made herself a strong cup of tea. Then she went straight to the cabinet. There it was. The green-bound volume. Tucked in the back corner, behind an atlas of lost isles and a crumbling manuscript of folk tales from Northumberland. She couldn't remember placing it there. In fact, she had no memory of ever seeing it at all. The leather was dark green, mottled like old moss, with no title, no markings, not even a publisher's stamp. It looked ancient, but untouched by time. She reached out. The moment her fingers brushed the spine, a jolt ran through her, like touching something that hummed with life. She recoiled, heart racing. The fireplace crackled behind her. The shop felt suddenly darker, as though the sun had slipped behind a cloud. Eleanor stared at the book. "Well," she whispered, What are you? The bell above the door chimed again. The stranger had returned. He was just as she remembered, coat dry, hair perfectly in place, not a trace of snow on his shoulders. It was as if he'd walked through the storm without being touched by it. You found it, he said, eyeing the book in her hands. I did, she replied, voice steady but cautious. But I haven't opened it. He approached slowly. That's wise. Not many can. The book chooses who may read it. Eleanor narrowed her eyes. And what's in it, exactly? Histories, he said. Truths that were buried long ago. Names that were erased. And a map to something the world forgot. A map, she asked. Of sorts. But not drawn in ink. His gaze flicked to the book. It's written in memory. Bloodlines. Curses. You see, Miss Whitmore, your family has always been its keeper. Whether you knew it or not. The words hit her like a cold wave. Her fingers tightened around the book. You've made a mistake, she said. I don't know anything about curses or bloodlines. But your grandfather did, the man replied gently. Arthur Whitmore was the last to open the book. And it cost him. Eleanor's throat tightened. Her grandfather had died mysteriously, suddenly, quietly, without explanation. He'd been healthy. Active. Then one night, he went to bed and never woke up. The stranger reached into his satchel and produced a folded parchment, yellowed and fraying at the edges. He placed it on the counter and unrolled it slowly. It was a family tree. Hers. Names she recognized. Names she didn't. Some were crossed out in red ink. Others faded completely. At the center was her name. Drawn in ink as fresh as if it had been written that morning. Eleanor backed away, her heart pounding. I don't want any part of this, she said. You may not have a choice, he replied. The book has awakened. And it called out to you. A sudden knock echoed from the back door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Eleanor froze. The stranger's eyes darkened. They've found you. She stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. Who? The stranger looked towards the rear of the shop. The ones who've been waiting for the book to fall into the wrong hands. We need to leave. Now. Eleanor clutched the volume tightly, unsure whether to run, hide, or hurl the book into the fire. But she knew, deep down, that nothing would be the same after today. Not in Wintermoor. Not for her. Not ever again. Eleanor barely had time to grab her coat. The stranger flung open the back door and ushered her into the snow. The alley behind the timeless page was narrow and silent, framed by frost-covered walls and crooked lanterns swaying in the wind. She followed him without question, clutching the green-bound book beneath her coat as if it were a fragile heart. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere they can't follow, he replied. For now. They moved quickly through Wintermoor's back lanes, passing frozen gardens and shuttered windows. The snow muted every step, as if the world itself was holding its breath. At the edge of the village, the stranger led her down an overgrown path Eleanor didn't recognize. Thorny branches clawed at her sleeves. The sky turned darker, the snow heavier. After what felt like miles, they arrived at a weathered iron gate half buried in the snow. A crumbling sign read Ashbridge House, the letters barely visible beneath layers of rust. The gate groaned as he pushed it open. Eleanor stared at the house beyond. Ashbridge was a ruin. Tall and broken-backed, with windows like hollow eyes and ivy strangling its stonework. The roof had half collapsed. One of the towers was missing entirely. The wind howled through its bones. Why are we here? She asked, her breath fogging. This is where it began, he said. Where the first keeper lived. Where the book was bound. Eleanor hesitated. How do you know all this? He paused, looking up at the broken archway of the entrance. Because I was born here. They stepped inside. The air was thick with cold and memory. The grand hall was mostly gone, swallowed by decay. But here and there, fragments of its past remained, faded portraits, shards of mosaic floor, the charred remains of a great hearth. The stranger lit a lantern and led her down a spiraling staircase beneath the ruined dining hall. Deep underground, they entered a circular room lined with shelves. Books, scrolls, and glass jars filled the walls. It was a hidden archive. He turned to face her. My name is Silas Moorcroft, he said. I'm what's left of the Ashbridge line. And I've spent my life protecting this archive. Eleanor held up the green book. Then you know what this is. He nodded. The Book of Witherwild. A record of a war the world forgot. Of creatures that once walked beside us. And of a family, your family, tasked with keeping the seal intact. What seal? Silas pulled an ancient tapestry from one of the walls. Behind it was a massive wooden door, sealed with iron vines and a strange symbol carved at its heart. The seal between our world and another. A place of ruin and shadow. Witherwild. The word rang in Eleanor's mind like a bell. That door has held for centuries, Silas continued. But the book's awakening means something stirring on the other side. Eleanor looked down at the volume in her hands. And what am I supposed to do about it? Read it. I tried. It wouldn't open. He nodded slowly. Because it wants something from you. Blood. Truth. Memory. Or perhaps, a choice. Silas stepped forward. You can walk away, Eleanor. Pretend none of this happened. Or you can read what your grandfather died protecting, and decide what happens next. A cold wind blew through the stairwell, whispering like a distant voice. Eleanor felt the weight of the book once more. Then she made her choice. She opened it. The pages fluttered as if alive, stopping on their own. And as she stared down at the ancient ink, a name emerged. Eleanor Whitmore. Beneath it, words written in a language she did not know, but somehow understood. And with them, a memory not her own. A boy, standing before the sealed door. A scream from the dark. A promise broken. And a shadow, rising behind him. The ink on the page shimmered like starlight. Eleanor's vision blurred. The walls of the archive spun around her, then dissolved entirely. She was no longer standing underground. She was somewhere else, ancient, cold, and far too real. She stood in the middle of a dark forest. The trees were vast and skeletal, their blackened trunks rising like twisted columns. A fine mist drifted through the air, carrying faint whispers that slithered just beyond comprehension. The ground beneath her boots was soft and uneven, like old graves. A voice echoed from behind a tree. Do you know why they chose you? Eleanor turned sharply. A figure stepped out from the mist, cloaked in dark green, face obscured beneath a hood. Unlike Silas, this presence felt wrong. The kind of wrong that curls in your gut. Its voice was neither male nor female. It simply was. You carry the name, but not the weight, it said. Not yet. Where am I? Eleanor demanded. The border, it replied. Where memories bleed into roots. Where the first oaths were made. This forest remembers, even if you don't. I'm dreaming, she muttered. No. You're remembering. The mist thickened, swirling around her feet. Then she saw them, images flickering like ghosts between the trees. A young man crouched by a fire, cradling a wounded creature in his arms. A woman standing beneath a blood-red moon, whispering to the trees. A child holding a sealed book, her eyes wide with fear. These are your blood's echoes, the figure whispered. Each Whitmore was marked by this place. Each made a choice. Eleanor clenched her fists. Why show me this? Because something stirs in Witherwild. The seal weakens. You must decide what kind of keeper you will be. It stepped closer. You've opened the book, but that was merely the door. Now comes the path. A sharp cry cut through the air, half human, half beast. The figure froze. Its head tilted slightly. They've found you. Before Eleanor could speak, the ground cracked beneath her. A hand, thin, grey, clawed, burst from the soil, grabbing at her ankle. More followed. Dozens. Grasping, clawing, dragging. She screamed. But just before she was pulled under, she felt hands on her shoulders. Eleanor. Silas's voice, distant but urgent. And then. She awoke. Back in the archive. Her breath came in ragged gasps. The book lay open beside her, glowing faintly. Silas knelt beside her, his face pale with concern. What did you see? He asked. Eleanor couldn't speak at first. Her mouth was dry. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Then, barely louder than a whisper, she replied. They're coming. The archive was no longer quiet. In the distance, the floorboards groaned with movement, slow and deliberate. The lights overhead flickered as if something ancient and unseen passed just beneath the surface of the earth. Eleanor pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the frantic beat of her heart. Silas shut the book. The bonds awakened, he said grimly. Now we have little time. He rose to his feet and crossed the room to a locked cabinet Eleanor hadn't noticed before. With a twist of a brass key that hung around his neck, the door creaked open. Inside were relics, aged scrolls, tarnished blades, a faded map inked in symbols that shifted when she looked too closely. Silas retrieved a long, narrow box. I hoped we'd never reach this moment, he murmured. But the forest has chosen. He placed the box on the table and opened it. Inside lay a dagger, silver and obsidian, its hilt carved with the Whitmore crest. Eleanor felt a strange hum in her bones as she stared at it. The weapon radiated something old. Something binding. What is this? She asked. The oath blade, Silas replied. Passed to each keeper when the seal begins to break. It's both weapon and key. Eleanor didn't move. You want me to take it? I don't want anything, Eleanor. But the forest demands it. And if we delay, whatever clawed its way to you in the Warden's Wood will find you again. Next time, you may not wake. She reached forward, hesitant. The moment her fingers brushed the hilt, a spark of cold fire surged through her palm, burning but not harming. The symbols on the blade shimmered, and a word echoed in her mind, not spoken aloud, yet unmistakable. Remember. A new weight settled in her chest, heavy with purpose. Silas stepped back, bowing his head slightly. You've accepted the bond. You're no longer just Eleanor Whitmore. You are keeper of Witherwild. Before she could respond, the archive's main doors slammed open. A tall figure strode in, boots heavy, coat soaked from the storm. His face was sharp, eyes pale as frost. A faint scar curled under his left eye. Eleanor stepped instinctively in front of the blade. The man stopped a few paces away and offered a slow, cold smile. So, the girl's taken the oath. I expected more time. Silas stiffened. Elias Thorne. You're not welcome here. I never was, Elias replied casually. But then, neither was truth. Eleanor's grip on the blade tightened. Who are you? An exile, he said, voice laced with bitterness. The last keeper who refused to lie. The room dropped into silence. Silas stepped between them. He betrayed the covenant. And the covenant, Elias said, stepping forward, betrayed us first. His eyes found Eleanor's. The forest chose you, yes. But it doesn't always choose wisely. You've inherited more than a legacy, girl. You've inherited a lie. He tossed something onto the floor. A fragment of bark, blackened, splintered, still smoldering. The wither world burns, Elias said softly. And if you want to stop what's coming, you'll have to follow me into its heart. The storm had not passed. Though the rain had faded to mist, the wind howled like wolves through the trees as Eleanor stepped beyond the threshold of Whitmore Archive. Elias moved ahead of her with practiced ease, his coat whipping behind him like a shadow with purpose. Silas remained behind, refusing to follow. You trust him? Eleanor had asked before leaving. Silas's expression had been carved from stone. No. But the forest might. Now, Eleanor followed the exile into the heart of the Warden's Wood, the blade at her side humming like it remembered every step. The trees here were different. Taller. Denser. Their trunks marked with ancient glyphs that pulsed faintly in her peripheral vision. Elias finally stopped beside an outcrop of stone, worn smooth by centuries of wind and moss. He placed a hand upon the stone, and the forest around them stilled, as if holding its breath. This is the gate, he said. To where? Eleanor asked. His pale eyes met hers. To what they buried. The truth they feared. A low growl echoed from somewhere deep behind the trees. Eleanor turned, blade half drawn. We're being followed. Elias didn't flinch. Of course we are. The forest knows its secrets are stirring. He knelt and whispered something in a language Eleanor didn't understand. The stone shifted, parting in the center, revealing a narrow path that descended into the earth. Once we go in, we don't come out unchanged, he warned. Eleanor hesitated only a moment, then stepped through. The tunnel swallowed them. The air was thick with earth and something older, decay laced with memory. Roots curled down from above, brushing her shoulders like skeletal fingers. And ahead, a faint blue glow flickered. The path widened into a hollow chamber. Carvings covered the walls, depictions of figures wrapped in cloaks, their eyes replaced with thorns, their hands outstretched toward a great tree with blackened bark and a crown of fire. At its base, a girl, holding a dagger. Eleanor's blood ran cold. That's you, Elias said quietly. Or one of you. What do you mean? There have been others, Eleanor. Chosen. Tested. Not all survived. He stepped closer to the wall, tracing a symbol with his finger. The Witherwild is not just forest. It's memory. And memory twists. A rustle behind them. Eleanor spun around, blade drawn fully now. From the shadows stepped a creature unlike anything she'd seen, tall and skeletal, its limbs made of bark and smoke, its face a hollowed-out void with eyes that glowed white. Warden, Elias muttered, voice low. The thing hissed. Eleanor raised the blade instinctively. The markings along its edge flared to life. The warden lunged. Still met shadow. Pain flared up Eleanor's arm, but she held firm. She remembered the vision, the voice that had whispered in her dream, don't run. Cut the lie. She did. The blade pierced the warden's chest and light erupted. When her vision cleared, only ash remained. Breathing hard, Eleanor looked to Elias, who watched her not with surprise, but something closer to grief. You saw it, he said. Didn't you? She nodded slowly. I saw the fire. The seal. And my mother. She was there. Elias looked away. Then it's worse than I feared. He pointed to the mural again. This time, Eleanor noticed something new, etched at the far edge of the wall, almost hidden. A second tree, upright and unburnt, but its roots wrapped tightly around a stone with a name carved into it. Whitmore. A chill settled over her. Your family, Elias said softly. They weren't just keepers. They were the ones who bound the truth. And now, the truth was breaking free. The wind carried whispers now. As Eleanor and Elias climbed from the crypt beneath the warden's wood, the forest no longer felt alive, it felt sentient. Watching. Remembering. The path twisted behind them like it resented their passage. The air had thickened with the scent of smoke and frost. Eleanor's thoughts reeled. Her mother. The tree. The name carved in stone, Whitmore. Everything pointed back to her family. She glanced at Elias, who strode ahead in silence, the blade-shaped pendant at his neck swinging with each step. He hadn't spoken since the vision. "Tell me," she said finally, "what happened to the other chosen?" He stopped. "They were sacrificed," he said quietly. "By the keepers. By people like your ancestors." A breath caught in her throat. "Why?" "To keep the seal from breaking. The wither world is a wound stitched shut with blood. And Whitmore blood sealed it." Eleanor staggered back a step, but he wasn't finished. "Your mother knew. She tried to undo it. That's why she disappeared." The ground shuddered underfoot. A tremor. Then another. Elias turned his head sharply. "We've stayed too long." Suddenly, from the trees behind them, a burst of light shattered the gloom. Silas emerged, breathless, dirt-smudged and wild-eyed. "You have to see this," he gasped. Elias tensed. "Where?" Silas didn't answer. He just ran. They followed, dodging between twisted trunks and fallen boughs until they reached the hill above Hollowmere. Below, the village burned. Flames licked the rooftops. Smoke curled into the sky in a writhing column. Figures moved through the streets, not villagers, but shadows wrapped in cloaks of ash, their faces masked, their footsteps silent. "The Hollow Guard," Silas whispered. "But they are gone." "Buried," Elias said. Eleanor's heart pounded. "They've returned." "To finish what they started," Elias growled. "To silence the truth." A scream echoed from the square. Without thinking, Eleanor sprinted down the hill. The streets of Hollowmere were chaos, doors broken, windows shattered, fires crackling. She darted through the alleys, searching. For survivors. For her uncle. For answers. In the town square, she found him. Warden Thomas. Kneeling in a circle of carved stone, hands pressed to the cobbled ground, whispering incantations in a trembling voice. The Hollow Guard closed in. "Stop!" Eleanor shouted. The nearest figure turned. No eyes. Just void. It lunged, but Elias was faster, his blade slicing clean through smoke and bone. Silas fired bolts from the shadows, covering their flanks. Thomas raised his head. "Eleanor," he rasped. "You shouldn't be here." "They're destroying everything," she cried. "Why aren't you stopping them?" His face collapsed in sorrow. "I tried. But the seal, it's breaking." He looked to the sky. "And when it does, the forest won't stay in the woods. It will consume." Elias stepped forward. "There's still time. But we need the heart." Thomas stared. "You mean to unbind it?" Eleanor clenched her fists. "We mean to stop it. Whatever it takes." A sudden gust of wind blew ash across the stones. And from behind the burning chapel, a figure stepped forth. Clad in black. Face familiar. Eleanor froze. It was her mother. Alive. But not unchanged. Eleanor stood frozen. Her mother's silhouette flickered through the smoke like a mirage, elegant, commanding, yet hauntingly altered. Her eyes, once gentle, now gleamed with an unnatural silver light. Shadows danced across her skin as though the forest itself clung to her. "Mother," Eleanor whispered. The woman smiled faintly. "You remember." It was her voice. Softer, older, tinged with sorrow, but it was hers. Elias moved in front of Eleanor, sword raised. "She's not the same," he muttered. "Step back." But Eleanor didn't move. "What happened to you?" Her mother's gaze fell to the burning village behind them. "I tried to stop the breaking. But the wither world doesn't just consume, it transforms. It remakes. I saw what lies beneath the roots, Eleanor. I became what I had to protect you." "The seal is breaking," Thomas said from behind them, his voice trembling. "And if the heart awakens, we all fall." Eleanor looked between them. Her mother. Elias. The warden. All of them speaking of choices. Of sacrifice. And her. She was supposed to decide. A howl rose in the distance. Then another. The forest was no longer sleeping. Something had stirred it, and now it came crawling forth. Her mother turned to Elias. "You want to take the heart. Use it to end this. But it won't obey you." "Then we'll destroy it," Elias said. "You can't. You'll break the world." Silas appeared at Eleanor's side, panting. "They're coming. More hollow guard. And something else. I've never seen anything like it." "Show us," Elias said. They raced north, leaving the village in ash and ruin. The path grew darker, colder. Trees arched high above like cathedral spires. Beneath them, the mist coiled thick as wool. At the center of it all, deep in the warden's hollow, they found it. The heart. Not a stone. Not a relic. A tree. Twisted, ancient, pulsing with a dull red glow that throbbed like a heartbeat. Its roots snaked through the earth like veins. Its branches reached skyward in gnarled spirals. And nailed to its trunk, half absorbed, half flesh, half wood. The bodies of the other chosen. Eleanor gasped, stepping back. Silas turned away in horror. Elias fell to his knees. "They were meant to protect this," he whispered. "No," her mother said, appearing beside the tree. "They were meant to become it. The heart feeds on sacrifice. And it remembers each one." Eleanor shook her head. "You let this happen." "I tried to stop it," her mother said again. "But by the time I learned the truth, I was already bound to it." Elias rose, fury in his eyes. "Then we burn it." "No," Eleanor said quietly. They turned to her. "If it feeds on sacrifice, then ending it may demand more of the same. More blood. But maybe there's another way." Thomas stepped forward. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we unbind it from death," she replied. "We give it something it's never had." She looked to her mother. Hope. The tree pulsed again. Faster now. Beneath the soil, the ground cracked. From the woods, the hollow guard came into view, more of them, uncountable, masks gleaming, weapons drawn. Behind them, something massive loomed. Antlered. Faceless. Eyes burning like coals. The Hollow King. Elias gripped his sword. This is it. The sky darkened. And the heart began to beat louder. The sky bled with fire. The Hollow King moved like a shadow through the mist, impossibly vast. His form flickered in and out of sight, as if the forest itself bent to let him pass. Where he walked, the trees blackened. The ground died. And yet, Eleanor stood her ground. Around her, chaos surged. Elias and Silas rushed to meet the hollow guard in a clash of blades and fire. Thomas summoned ancient runes, his arms glowing with light, casting barriers against the incoming storm of rot and darkness. But Eleanor looked only at the heart. It pulsed faster now. Reacting. Aware. She stepped closer. "You don't have to feed on suffering," she whispered. "There's another way." The roots quivered. Behind her, her mother called out, her voice urgent. You mustn't touch it. It will take everything from you. Eleanor didn't stop. She reached forward, and the bark shifted. Threads of light spiraled along her arms as her fingers brushed the surface. Memories flooded her mind. Pain. Grief. Betrayal. 1,000 voices. 1,000 sacrifices. All buried in the wood. And then, beneath it, something else. A seed. Not yet broken. Not yet ruined. Hope. She poured her thoughts into it. Her love for her father, for her friends, even for the mother who had become something more than human. She gave it her fear, her defiance, her desire to end the curse without another death. And the heart listened. It glowed brighter, no longer red but gold. The forest trembled. The Hollow King stopped. He turned his faceless head toward her, sensing the shift. And then he screamed. The sound cracked the sky. Elias staggered. Silas fell to one knee. The Hollow Guard shuddered, their masks crumbling as if struck by lightning. And the heart began to burn. But not with fire. With light. Golden branches erupted from its trunk. The roots unfurled, tearing through the soil, pushing back the corruption. The twisted tree transformed, reborn. Her mother cried out, stumbling backward. Her form flickered between flesh and shadow, caught between two natures. No. It's too much. Eleanor reached back. Come with me. Her mother's eyes met hers, real eyes, for just a moment. Then she took Eleanor's hand. The golden light surged, enveloping them both. And the Hollow King charged. He howled with fury, hurling himself forward, but the light caught him mid-leap. Wrapped around him. Bound him. And then unmade him. The sound of the scream faded. Silence fell. The Hollow Guard disintegrated into ash. The sky cleared. The heart, now a radiant golden tree, stood in quiet triumph. Eleanor collapsed to her knees, breathless. Beside her, her mother lay still. No longer corrupted. Just gone. Elias rushed forward, catching Eleanor before she fell completely. You did it, he said, voice shaking. Thomas stood over the tree, his hands trembling. I've never seen power like that. Not in 1,000 years. Silas dropped his bow. Is it over? Eleanor looked up at the golden branches above, light pouring through their leaves like morning sun. Yes, she said softly. It's over. The heart had been unbound. Not by sword. Not by spell. But by hope.